The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle Fortin. Mr. Speaker, a horrific and unprecedented tragedy has occurred in my riding.
À la garderie éducative.
It occurred at the St. Rose Daycare, located on Terrasse Dauphren in Laval. A Société de Transport de Laval bus drove into this daycare, which caused the death of 2 children.
Ainsi qu'en blessant.
And 6 children were also seriously injured. This is very sad. My thoughts are with the children, their families, and the daycare staff. I am deeply saddened. I want to thank the first responders, firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and the community members who were present at the scene. Thank you to many colleagues from all political parties for their condolences and support after this unspeakable tragedy. I extend my deepest condolences to the affected families. Thank you.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Parliamentary Budget Officer this week criticized the fact that the government decided that it's not worth going after the $15 billion in overpayments to big corporations that they received for salary help. That's money that they should not have received. That's money that's coming out of the pockets of Canadians. It's the equivalent of $1,000 for every Canadian family. When will the Prime Minister finally go get the money that was illegally given to these major corporations? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'll remind the Honourable Member, and he has access to it, that's the public record. Last week at the Public Accounts Committee, the Commissioner of the CRA made clear that verification work with respect to determining eligibility for the various COVID emergency programs is ongoing. It was the CRA public employees who in a very focused way, helped to administer the various programs in place during COVID, and it's them now that are carrying out the vital verification work. This work is taken seriously. It's fiscally responsible approach. He voted for it. Let's continue.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, no, the Prime Minister's top tax collector, Bob Hamilton, the Commissioner of CRA, said, quote, it wouldn't be worth the effort to review and recover every of the $15.5 billion paid out illegally to these corporations. Wouldn't be worth the effort. $15 billion equals $1,000 for every single household in Canada. Wow. Money taken from working-class single moms who can't feed their kids and given to wealthy corporations with connections to this government. Why won't they take back the money that was illegally taken and give it back to Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition leader talks about Canadians. Where was he at the height of the pandemic when Canadians needed their government? He was talking about an austerity agenda. He was talking about cuts. He wasn't behind the various programs that helped to sustain this country. The work of the CRA continues, as I mentioned before. It's ongoing. It is serious. It's focused. In fact, you should check the record. In November of 2020, it was he and his party that voted to stop that work on the part of the CRA. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That's absolutely false. Where was I? I was in this House telling the government that they shouldn't pay wage subsidies to corporations that were wealthy enough to pay out dividends, bonuses, and share buybacks. That's where I was. And now we find out that it gets worse, that there were 37 corporations that received the wage subsidy worth $81 billion who paid out dividends. to their wealthy shareholders. This was not money for workers. It was money for the wealthy. Why is it this government always gives more to the have-yachts by taking from the have-nots?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker. Again, when it comes to vital COVID programs that help to keep businesses going, he was against all of that. The key fact about the wage subsidy is that small businesses and medium-sized businesses in particular were kept going throughout the pandemic. That's what we have to keep in mind. In fact, when it comes to the vital avoidance work and evasion work that the CRA carries out, the Conservatives cut the CRA budgets. It couldn't do that work effectively. In 2015 and onwards, we've invested in the CRA to carry out avoidance work, to carry out evasion work. Investigations are up, as are criminal convictions and time spent in jail among those convicted. Thank you very much.
The Leader of the Opposition.
It is absolutely true that we were able to collect taxes from powerful corporations while having less bureaucracy at CRA. We deliver more for less. By contrast, this Prime Minister's top tax collector says he doesn't have the resources to go after the $15 billion the Prime Minister gave in wage subsidies, illegal wage subsidies to these powerful corporations. This is an agency that has added 10,000 additional tax collectors. Wow. Right. What are they doing? Going after the little guy. Why won't they go after the Prime Minister's corporate friends instead?
The Honourable Minister for Family.
Mr. Speaker, if we want to talk about the little guy, I've been talking to small businesses and charitable organizations across this country who say to me every time I meet with them, thank you for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. We would not have been able to keep our doors open. We would not have been able to keep our people employed had it not been for this vital and crucial support at the height of the pandemic. Unfortunately, we have the Leader of the Opposition who said we don't want big government. We don't want to help Canadians during this time. Well, Mr. Speaker, we took a different approach. We were there for Canadians when they needed us, and we'll continue to be there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Opposition.
She should talk to her fellow colleague who just admitted that I voted in favor of supporting small businesses during the pandemic. But we, on this side of the House, are against fraud. There's been $15 billion in overpayments given directly to the largest corporations who should not have received it. And now the Prime Minister's top tax collector says that he's not going to go after the money. He'll just leave it in the hands of those corporations. This money equals $1,000 for every household in Canada. Why do they put the burden on the Canadians who are drowning in debt rather than the powerful corporations that are swimming in profit?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Our government is against fraud as well, and for every dollar that we invest in the Canada Revenue Agency, we get $5 back in people that have avoided their taxes. That is a fantastic return on investment, Mr. Speaker. And let's be clear, CRA is working hard to get back the wage subsidies that were given to people in error. Mr. Speaker, our government also put place regulations to make sure that companies that put money towards profits have those monies clawed back. Mr. Speaker, a windfall tax on the banks and insurance companies as well. We're doing the right thing. We're sticking up for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister refused to denounce the disinformation on the French language charter at the Official Languages Committee. He even refused to correct that disinformation to reassure Anglophone Quebecers on the real effects of C-13 and Bill 96. So he's not denouncing the disinformation, he's not fixing it. If he's not denouncing it or fixing it, that means he approves it. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, is the position of the members for Saint Laurent, Westmount and Mont-Royal on French in Quebec also the position of the Prime Minister? Is that his position? The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we were very clear. Our government is the first government to recognize the importance of French across the country, including in Quebec, and that's why we're moving ahead with Bill C-13. We've been very clear in the throne speech. Our government and the Prime Minister has also been very clear that we are moving forward with this bill to make sure that we do our fair share to protect and promote French across the country and also to protect official language minority communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is dividing. He's dividing Canadians and Quebecers with the nomination of Amira El-Gawabi. He's dividing Quebecers between themselves by telling his gang from the West Island to spread misinformation on the French language charter. Yesterday, he attempted to divide Quebecers and Francophones outside of Quebec by slandering the intentions of the Bloc Québécois. He even found a way to divide his own caucus on the protection of French. You can't invent this. The Prime Minister is fanning the flames of division in his own house, Mr. Speaker. Where is this going to stop? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as a proud Acadian who lives in an official language minority community, I am aware of the importance of protecting and promoting French across the country, including in Quebec. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we are moving forward with this bill. It's an ambitious bill that's going to make a difference for our official language minority communities. And once again, I hope that we will have the support of our colleagues everywhere in this House to make sure we can move forward, because people across the country are telling us that they want to see this bill passed as quickly as possible. Thank you.
For North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, veterans and their families are concerned about the outsourcing of essential services to Loblaws. My office has been hearing about treatments on hold while contractors reevaluate the veterans' injuries, significant delays in services, trusted providers blocked from delivering services to veterans who desperately need them. And this contract is costing taxpayers 25% more and delivering less. Veterans deserve better. When will the Liberals actually start serving veterans instead of greedy for-profit companies?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, we have been the government here supporting veterans since the beginning. In 2016, we invested since 2016, over $11 billion to support veterans, including lots of different programs to support those veterans. Let it be Chronic for Life Centre of Excellence for Chronic for Life. Let it be Pension for Life. We have been there since the beginning to support veterans, and we will be there right through as we continue as government. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling with their mental health. Levels of anxiety and feelings of isolation are at all-time highs, but accessing help is nearly impossible. Costs for therapy are sky high and out of reach. Publicly funded services have long waits. People have nowhere to turn. Yet the Liberals' new healthcare deal with the provinces doesn't guarantee money for mental health, and after 2 years, a single cent hasn't been spent on the Liberals' promised Canada Mental Health Transfer. It's broken promise after broken promise. Will the minister commit today to delivering on the Canada Mental Health Transfer?
The Minister for Mental Health.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians should be able to access timely, evidence-based, culturally appropriate, and trauma-informed mental health and substance use support services to support their well-being. Through the proposed bilateral agreements on the shared health priorities, we're working with the provinces and territories to integrate mental health and substance use as a full and equal part of our universal healthcare system. This will ensure provinces and territories provide transparency and accountability for the access to the most appropriate mental health and substance use services.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Les-Chemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years under this Prime Minister, inflation is out of control. It's simple. Everything costs more. Groceries, home heating, and housing. The Prime Minister wants us to believe that he can't do anything about it, that it's not his fault, but it's because of the way he's been spending that we're in this situation. Even his former Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, recently confirmed this. Could he look the truth in the face, Mr. Speaker, and admit that he has caused immense damage to the economy of Canada? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, the situation that Canadians are facing right now, the question facing Canadians right now is who has a plan for the future for Canadians? Who has a plan for climate change? We do, the Conservatives don't. Who has a plan for the future of this economy in Canada? It's the Liberals, not the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are acting, the Conservatives are just starting fights. We're there for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Les-Chemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, who is killing Canada's economy? It's the Liberals. The Liberals, Mr. Speaker. According to a recent Léger poll, Quebecers are going into 2023 with a very high level of stress. Their main concern is the impact of increased costs. What is it going to take, Mr. Speaker, for this Prime Minister to see the same thing and hear the same thing as us? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, let's remember the facts. Our GDP, our real GDP, is at 3.5%. It's the highest since the pandemic. We have one of the lowest inflation rates. It's lower than the United States or the UK. Our growth is going to be the highest in the world. And it's not us that are saying this, it's external experts. And we have the lowest unemployment rate since 1966. And who's leading this economy? We are the Liberals.
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, the carbon tax grab is leaving Canadians in the cold. The government has reported that more than half of Canadian households pay more than $200 a month just to heat their homes. But it's going to get worse because of the tripling of the carbon tax that will affect home heating in every house in this country. We need to keep the heat on and take the tax off. Right. Will this Prime Minister take responsibility, axe the carbon tax, and fix what he broke?
Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of the Environment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every time we put forward an affordability measure, rental support, dental support, the Canada Child Benefit, the middle class tax cut, the Conservatives vote against it, Mr. Speaker. And something's just not sinking in, Mr. Speaker. The climate action rebate puts more money in people's pockets than they pay at the pump. 8 out of 10 families will be better off, Mr. Speaker. But you know what won't make families better off, Mr. Speaker? Investing in cryptocurrency, investing in Bitcoin. I wonder if the Leader of the Opposition will stand in this House right now and apologize for those Canadians who lost their shirts.
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you know what Conservatives will do? We will axe the carbon tax, which makes the price of everything go up in this country and is affecting inflation. That's right. The government likes to say that they'll take no lessons from the Conservatives, and that's obvious because things keep getting worse. A resident of mine, Chris, says it's hard to keep up with this bills because of inflation. And he says, quote, he's always a little hungry, and he's always a little cold, and his clothes are now hanging loosely. You know, we teach our kids to take responsibility for their actions, and yet this Prime Minister blames everyone else. Will the Prime Minister take responsibility for the cost of living crisis and fix what he broke?
The Honourable Minister for Rural Development.
Speaker, I'd like the opposition to take responsibility for the terrible jargon they're putting out of what we have to do on climate change. My riding is devastated, as you've heard me say numerous times. A vital income in my riding is a fishery. I have, as a result of Hurricane Fiona, $59.2 million worth of damage done to small craft harbors infrastructure. That was in pretty good shape before Hurricane Fiona hit. The price of not addressing climate change is real.
Member for Chilliwack Hope.
8 years of out-of-control spending by this Liberal Prime Minister has led to a massive increase in interest rates, and as a result, nearly half of Canadians with a variable rate mortgage say that they may have to move out of their homes in just a matter of months. And if skyrocketing mortgage payments weren't enough, the Prime Minister is set to triple the carbon tax on those struggling Canadians. Conservatives will keep the heat on to take that tax off. So will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility for this affordability crisis that he's created, so that, or get out of the way so that we can fix the problem?
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Mr. Speaker, it is very rich hearing the other side talking about affordability with respect to housing, because every housing measure that we brought before this House to help Canadians attain their dream of home ownership, they vote against it. Whether it is the $200 million rent-to-own program, whether it is the first-time homebuyer tax-free savings account of up to $40,000, whether it is doubling the tax credit for first-time homebuyers, or whether it is the ban on foreigners owning Canadian residential real estate, they vote against all those measures. Yet they try to stand here and say that they support Canadians when it's clear that they don't.
Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, that minister needs to get out of this Ottawa bubble. He keeps talking about government programs, but he's not listening to Canadians. Canadians who have seen their rents double after 8 years of this Prime Minister. Canadians who are now facing the prospect of having to move if they have a variable rate mortgage after 8 years of this Prime Minister. Canadians who can no longer afford to put food on the table with 40-year highs in food prices. 1.5 million Canadians lined up at the food bank. Why don't they take responsibility and cut the carbon tax and give Canadians a break?
Yes. The Honourable Minister for Housing.
The member opposite talked about supports for renters. He talked about renters struggling in Canada. That is precisely why we introduced the Canada Housing Benefit, which looks to invest an average of $2,500 to vulnerable renters across the country. In addition to that, we introduced a one-time top-up of $500 to vulnerable renters, 1.8 million renters across the country. Not only did they vote against that, they played procedural games last fall to delay passage of that bill, which would have sent much-needed supports to renters.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the federal government promised a substantial offer to Quebec and the provinces to support the healthcare system. Instead, we got a substantial disappointment. The minister knew that Quebec and the provinces needed $28 billion more per year to repair the healthcare system, and he's offering them barely a sixth of that. Is the minister seriously able to claim that by offering a sixth of the money that's needed, he's giving Quebec the means to fix problems in healthcare? The Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people of Canadian expect to be able to reserve healthcare services when they need them. Our government is going to be there today and in the future with investments to do everything that's necessary. Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, everyone knows that there's a crisis in health caused by chronic underfunding from the federal government. Everyone except the minister. Quebec and the provinces have said that they need $28 billion more per year. The government's put $4.6 billion on the table. The government's offer guarantees that we're going to continue to have problems in the healthcare system for at least 10 years. Their offer makes chronic underfunding of healthcare permanent, and they say they're expecting to see results. Do they not realize that by offering so little, they're ensuring patients won't get the care they need? The Honourable Minister of Mental Health. This government will ensure that Canadians receive healthcare services when and where they need them, and we will continue to support our healthcare workers. Our plan of $198 billion over 10 years includes additional immediate funding and unconditional funding to the Canada Health Transfer, as well as targeted investments and an increase in permanent funding to the health transfer. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have been repeating that this government spends too much, and yet their new leader has promised to maintain the Liberal offer for healthcare funding if they take power one day. That's literally the only Liberal policy that the Conservative leader has committed to protecting if he becomes Prime Minister. And everyone knows that when the Conservative leader listens to Séraphin, he finds that Séraphin isn't cheap enough. So is this not the proof that the Liberal offer is a cheap offer? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the working meeting with the premiers of the provinces and territories, we discussed an increase of over $190 billion over 10 years to the Canada Health Transfer, including new funding, an immediate and unconditional increase of $2 billion to the Canada Health Transfer to take immediate pressure off the healthcare system, particularly in pediatric hospitals, emergency rooms, and to deal with surgical wait times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Bent Airdrie.
After 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, many Canadians are left shivering in the cold because they can't afford to heat their home. and the Prime Minister has shown zero compassion, refusing to take responsibility for the pain that he's causing with his punishing carbon tax. But Conservatives will fix what he's broken. We'll axe the tax and we'll keep the heat on. Does the Prime Minister really believe that Canadians should have to wear a coat inside their own homes to keep warm in the winter?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, it's disappointing to see the Conservatives try to create fear amongst Canadians for political gain when we understand that they are vulnerable. He should know that his constituents will actually, on average, receive more money as a result of the policy to put a price on pollution. It's extraordinary to me that the Conservatives have a plan to take money away from families so they can give it to polluters. Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning, we have made decisions to put more money in the pockets of middle class and working class families. We're going to continue to be there for them, no matter how hard the Conservatives oppose.
Well, member of Coast of Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, the cost of living is out of control. In the past 8 years, home heating costs have skyrocketed. To add insult to injury, this Liberal government is going to triple the carbon tax. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says carbon tax is a net financial loss for most Canadians. Will the Prime Minister take the tax off so Canadians can keep the heat on?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it's really disappointing to hear from the other side because months after the worst disaster, the worst climate disaster in Atlantic history, the Conservatives want to take away a measure that will actually fight pollution and put more money in people's pockets. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member was even mocking some of the measures we want to introduce to help Atlantic Canadians transition away from dirty foreign oil to cleaner forms of energy. And that's because, Mr. Speaker, they have no plan for climate change, they have no plan for affordability, they have no plan for the economy.
The Honourable Member for Coast of Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Disappointed, Mr. Speaker. I'll tell these Liberals who are disappointed. Atlantic Canadians. That's who's disappointed, who put their trust in them since 2015. In this this government has passed its expiry date, Mr. Speaker. Corey and Gander, he knows that. His oil bill is going to increase to $8,000 from $4,000 last year. And it's about to get worse with the tripling of the carbon tax. But, Mr. Speaker, Conservatives will keep the heat on to take the tax off. Will the Prime Minister take responsibility for the misery that he's caused Canadians like Corey so he can fix what's broken?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
First, I'd like to begin by pointing out to the member opposite, and he's well aware that Newfoundland doesn't actually have the federal backstop that applies. But I want to also point out that we are helping Canadians to make the home heating more affordable. We have the Oil to Heat Pump program, the Greener Homes Grant, and more than that, today we announced the deep retrofit accelerator to help Canadians to make those necessary changes. And there's good news attached to this, Mr. Speaker. It's creating good-paying jobs, doing these retrofits in small communities and large communities right across our country.
The Honourable Member for Churchill-Kiewatnik-Askey.
Mr. Speaker, today, Canadians for Tax Fairness released a report that looked at 74 Canadian companies that use the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and tax avoidance schemes. When this Prime Minister said we're all in this together, I didn't know he meant we're in a billionaire tax haven. Take Brookfield Asset Management, a tax gap of $6.5 billion. 5 of its subsidiaries received the wage subsidy despite being based in Bermuda. Enbridge, Thomson Reuters, a who's who of corporate tax avoidance. Why do the Liberals expect Canadians to subsidize the lifestyles of the ultra-wealthy?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The key point, as I said before, about the wage subsidy is the way that it helps small businesses. Small business owners, their employees, medium-sized business owners, their employees. That's the fundamental fact to take away. With respect to the honourable member's questions about avoidance and evasion, again, this government has invested no less than $1 billion to counter both of those things, and the results are clear. Investigations are up, convictions are up. If the honourable member has another question, I can go into the specifics of it. I think I'm running out of my 30 seconds, but I welcome the question again if she wishes. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, it
does a disservice to small business to use them to deflect from answering questions about why giant corporations got over $15 billion in taxpayer money while they were reducing their workforce and paying tens of billions of dollars in dividends.
That's right.
Meanwhile, if you're a Canadian living below the poverty line, the government knows exactly where to find you to send the bills. So why is it the giant corporations are getting general debt relief from pandemic benefit programs when Canada's poor are being chased down by the CRA? Where's the fairness in that?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I have respect for the honourable member because since the moment he was elected, he has raised the concerns of working class individuals and families. On this matter, though, the wage subsidy proved enormously effective for people in his community and in every Canadian community. Businesses in need of support, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and that verification work that I was talking about earlier today does continue as a matter of fairness. With respect to CERB and amnesty questions that he has raised, he knows very well that that work is ongoing as well. It's only fair that when Canadians, thousands across the country, look to see if they were eligible and were not, we have to continue to verify because they took that effort to ensure.
Député de Bourassa.
Monsieur le Président, as we commemorate the impactful contributions and accomplishments of Black in Canada this Black History Month, it is important to recognize the challenges faced by Black communities across the country. Last October, the Minister of Diversity introduced the $200 million Black-led philanthropic endowment fund aimed to improve the social and economic well-being of Black in Canada. May the Minister provide an update of this substantial initiative, please.
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member from Bourassa for his question and really his important advocacy on this matter. As part of our government's commitment to eliminate anti-Black racism and improve social and economic outcomes in Black Canadian communities, we launched the first ever Black-led philanthropic endowment fund. And just yesterday, I was pleased to announce that after a fair and transparent call for proposals, the Foundation for Black Communities has been chosen to administer the fund. Simply put, this fund will provide much-needed resources to Black Canadian charities and nonprofits who have done so much for so many with so little resources. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, we have an economy that punishes the middle class and those struggling to stay in it. But Liberal friends, they're doing great. 37 corporations took the Liberal wage subsidy, then spent $173 billion on dividends, share buybacks, and takeovers. The Liberals are refusing to make them pay back the money. So Canadian workers foot the bill when they can barely afford mortgages, rent, and groceries. When will the Liberals force their corporate friends to pay back that money?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The Parliamentary Secretary has been up many times on this subject. The reality is the process of collecting money is ongoing. I would remind the party opposite that they opposed at that moment in time many of the measures that were critical to make sure we got money out instantly to those who needed it, to keep doors open, to keep businesses going, and we have an opportunity to talk to those businesses every day and hear that that's the truth. Mr. Speaker, they're not only wrong about that, but I would say, as they say things like, 8 years instead of 7, I know they're bad at math, Mr. Speaker, but really, I would ask them to be a little bit more realistic in how they're speaking.
Well, Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, we supported businesses staying open. We didn't support large dividends for their large corporate friends. The minister refuses to do her job after 8 years in her portfolio and 10,000 more tax collectors. It's her duty to go after fraud of any taxpayer money. She protects wealthy shareholders and executives. Her government drives up interest rates and inflation, and life becomes unaffordable for working Canadians. Even the Parliamentary Budget Officer is sounding the alarm on this incompetence. Why does it feel like everything is broken? Because the Prime Minister won't do his job, so will he get out of the way and let Conservatives...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The member talks about fiscal responsibility. when conservatives continue to make the case, unfortunately, that crypto poses some kind of promising future for Canada, this government has introduced and will continue to do the vital work of standing by Canadians through the pandemic and into the future. With respect to what the member raises on evasion and avoidance work, just with respect to the Panama Papers and the response, 900 individuals identified as subjects of concern by the CRA, 160 audits are underway, and 200 audits have come to completion. The work continues, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, nothing is too good for Liberals. For Liberal friends, the middle class is finding hard to pay their bills, but it's Klondike for large corporations. 37 corporations have asked for billions of dollars of wage subsidies. And what did they do with that money? Well, they gave themselves bonuses. In our riding offices, we have people who call us to say that the CRA is at their heels. But the CRA is doing nothing against large corporations. Will the Prime Minister finally step up to the plate and reimburse Canadians, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister for Tourism. The Parliamentary Secretary was right in his answer earlier. The CRA continues its auditing of wage subsidies. Our government implemented regulations, specific regulations, to regulate the abusive use of wage subsidies, including those that were used to buy shares and for bonuses. We will find people who committed fraud. We will defend Canadians. We are here to deliver for Canadians. That is what we are here to do, and that's what we will do. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-L'Érable, after 8 years of this government, they don't even know what's happening in their own department and in their own government. The CRA Commissioner stated that there was no point trying to recoup $15 billion that was dispersed to companies. If the CRA Commissioner said that, it's not me. They're following the example of this Prime Minister for the past 8 years. Will the Prime Minister ask his minister to finally do her job and get the money back? Or perhaps they should let us take their place. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it took us 7 years and a few months in order to repair the harms of the previous Conservative government. And we will continue to rectify their wrongs. When they claim that they are helping Canadians, we are actually helping Canadians. We have a strong economy, we are helping Canadians. They will cry and wail, but we will deliver on this side. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, Joe Biden, in his State of the Union address, had some bad news for Quebec. He announced that he was reinforcing his protectionist Buy America policy by promising that all infrastructure projects would use only American materials. The first thing he named was softwood lumber. So do you think Ottawa is on the verge of settling the trade dispute, Mr. Speaker? Biden is not concerned about keeping the free trade agreement he signed. He even says so publicly. So when he comes to Ottawa in March, will the Prime Minister defend our industries, including Quebec's forestry sector? The Honourable Minister for International Affairs.
That important question. The answer is we will always defend Canadian industries. We will always defend the softwood lumber industry in that sector. We just met with the American president not that long ago. We agreed that Canada and the United States have an important trading relationship. We do about $4 billion worth of trade a day. We are competitive, the most competitive in the world, and we're fighting climate change. And when the Americans do business with Canada, workers benefit because of good labor, good paying jobs in both countries, and we're fighting climate together, and we're going to keep doing that.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, American protectionism is worrying all of our industrial sectors. Right now, a Quebec company, for example, that has, let's say, $50 million to invest in its development, well, it's hesitating now. It's wondering whether it should grow in Quebec or whether it should develop south of the border in the United States for fear of being excluded from American contracts. Biden's speech is an incentive for our companies to relocate south. So, when the Prime Minister meets with Biden in March, will he stand up for Quebec's economy and remind the Americans that they have obligations The Honourable Minister for Sports. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to reassure my colleague we have always defended Quebec and Canadian industry, and we will always continue to do so. We believe in the importance of softwood lumber, the importance of developing tomorrow's economy in order to have a class of choice when it comes to electrification of transport. We have great things to come for Canada. We are very well positioned. We're ahead of the Americans, and we're ahead of the world, and we'll continue to defend our spot in tomorrow's economy. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, corrupt companies are still welcome to do business with this government. Deputy Minister Paul Thompson has said that a Canadian company would not be eligible for federal contracts if one of its affiliates had been convicted of a crime, but he also claims that McKinsey does not meet the criteria to be banned. But because of McKinsey's complicity, many thousands of people have died from opioid overdoses, and many more lives have been destroyed. When will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility for this mess? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Mr. Speaker, it is important to remind Canadians that the previous government implemented a system of integrity, and we follow their system of integrity in order to make sure that companies can do business in Canada. And so we'll continue to do business with companies that follow that integrity system.
Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this government's inflationary spending, things are worse than ever for Canadians, and they are struggling just to get by. Mr. Speaker, this government has given over $100 million to McKinsey and Company. So why doesn't this Prime Minister just take responsibility that McKinsey is influencing this government and stop giving money to well-connected insiders?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, when the members opposite talk about the spending that we did over the past couple of years, they're talking about supports that we provided to Canadians at the height of the pandemic. They're talking about the Canada Emergency Response Benefit that was there, that helped millions of Canadians to keep afloat during a very difficult time. Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to be there for Canadians. We're going to be there when times are tough, and we're going to be there as things continue to get better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, the minister across the way would have you believe that this gross largesse for McKinsey is somehow about helping families. Let me assure the member opposite that there will be austerity for McKinsey when Conservatives take office, but there will be support available for Canadians. Now, yesterday, the President of the Treasury Board could not answer my question about whether or not McKinsey is an ethical company. This should not be a difficult question given the record. So, can any minister in the government answer this simple question? Does the government believe that McKinsey is an ethical company? Yes or no?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member across would know that contracts that are engaged by the public service are done at an arm's length. I really hope, Mr. Speaker, that the member is not saying if they ever had the opportunity to be in government, which I sincerely hope they don't, that they would interfere in those contracts and choose politically which contracts would happen. That was what it sounded like from his answer, Mr. Speaker. The reality is contracts exist to expand the ability of the public service to do its work. Those contracts are engaged at the highest standard. Canada is known internationally for those standards, Mr. Speaker, and they're done at arm's length.
The Honourable Member for London West.
Mr. Speaker, since the COVID-19 pandemic, our Canadian athletes have been asking for more and more support and resources for their mental health. Would the Minister for Sports and Minister responsible for the Economic Development Agency of Canada for the regions of Quebec be pleased to inform this House on the recent initiatives she has put in place to help Canadian athletes? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister for Sports. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I would like to thank my colleague for her question, also for her support in this very important dossier for our government. On a regular basis, my team and I are in contact with athletes throughout the country, and the issue that comes up often is that of mental health. That is the reason for which last December I announced a $2.4 million envelope in funding for better access to mental health support for our Canadian athletes. They will have access to psychological assistance and help closer to where they train, not only for their performance but for their well-being. The well-being of athletes comes through mental health, and no one has to be left behind. That is why I'm proud of my colleagues that announced $198 million to improve healthcare throughout the country.
Parkland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of radical liberal experiments with our justice system, Canadians are less safe than ever. OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrick, along with all of Canada's premiers, are sounding the alarm. Soft on crime, liberal bail policies mean that there are more violent repeat offenders on our streets than ever. The consequences of these liberal policies are fatal, and Canadians will not tolerate liberal failure. When will this Prime Minister finally take responsibility and keep these violent thugs behind bars where they belong?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve to be safe and they deserve to feel safe. The laws on bail that we currently have, Mr. Speaker, are clear. If one poses a threat to society, he or she should not be out on bail. Mr. Speaker, I have met with provincial counterparts and begun the process of discussing with them. And indeed, this morning, the Minister of Public Security and I met with national leadership of police associations, including Chief Carrick, in order to get their suggestions to move forward. We all agree it's a complex issue. It will require a number of different responses. And, Mr. Speaker, we're working together.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada has never been in worse shape. Crime is increasing dramatically. People are looking for ways to pay their food and shelter. This government is abusing the goodness of its citizens. For 8 years now, this Prime Minister has been leading our country, and we are heading right off a cliff. We need a change of direction. What does this Prime Minister intend to do to put Canada back on the right track? The Honourable Minister for Tourism. Let us go back to facts. This country is the envy of the world when it comes to how we dealt with the pandemic. And Mr. Speaker, have you heard throughout this week, have you heard the Conservatives say things that create panic and anxiety? What we are doing on this side is offering hope. Hope of having solutions, and we bring solutions. They have no plan. We have a plan that will deliver the goods for Canadians with hope for the future.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
After 8 years of this Prime Minister, these Liberals have found a new strategy to kill jobs, and that's to protect mud. These Liberals are proposing to shut down the critical halibut and swordfish fisheries off Browns Bank with a new marine protected area by the end of next year. More than 95% of the ocean floor these Liberals are planning to protect is mud. Apparently, a fishing line 12 feet under the surface of the water is a danger to the mud 270 feet below. Will the Liberal who wants to kill fishing jobs to protect the scarcity of mud and
the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for his question and enjoy sitting on committee with him. I think it's important to remember there was a time when the Conservative Party was in power and they muzzled scientists, cut DFO jobs, and I believe they just didn't give two hoots about anything related to keeping jobs in community. I will say that when it comes to the fishing and fishing communities, we've invested through the Fish Harvesters Benefit, we've invested in small craft harbors. We know that small craft harbors, jobs, fishing jobs are the lifeblood of Atlantic Canadian communities and communities throughout Canada. We'll continue to fight for them while he continues with his puns.
The Honourable Member for Bonavista Burin Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, this week is International Development Week, a week that's aimed to inform, inspire, and involve Canadians in Canada's international development efforts. While this week many organizations will be highlighting their efforts, it was reported by the United Nations that around 660 million people may still face hunger in 2030, in part due to lasting effects of COVID-19 pandemic on the global food security. Can the Minister of International Development share with this House how our government will help the most vulnerable.
Minister for International Development.
Speaker, I want to thank the member for the question. It's important work in development. It's a great opportunity for me to highlight International Development Week and also our international assistance, Feminist International Assistance Policy. Mr. Speaker, our Feminist International Assistance Policy, we fund programs that address food security while giving women and girls equal access to education and resources. And I'll give you an example with this. A study found if women farmers that have the same access to resources as men, there would be over 40% reduction of people living in hunger. So, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to fund programs that have a direct impact on reducing hunger around the world and increase women and girls' participation in decision making. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, relief efforts in Turkey and Syria will need far more support in the coming weeks. Canadian partners are stepping up to help, but they need more support. So far, the government has only announced a matching fund for the Red Cross, but not for the Humanitarian Coalition. Now, the Humanitarian Coalition is a group of 12 Canadian leading international aid agencies that have vast experience in the region and are on the ground right now. Will this government fix the matching fund to make sure that these Canadian organizations can deliver help to those who are displaced, grieving, and deeply suffering right now?
Well, Minister.
I want to thank the member for the question, and I want to also thank the Humanitarian Coalition, a group of NGOs, Canadian NGOs who do this amazing work. Yes, we have announced a matching fund of $10 million. This is in addition to the $10 million we have already committed. Our needs assessment is currently ongoing, and all options are on the table, whether it's additional matching fund. Also, we will also even consider direct funding to the Canadian Coalition to help the tremendous work that they're doing on the ground. Thank you.
The honourable member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, in the Hill Times of January 25th, the government House leader stated that in the upcoming session, the government's third priority would be, and I quote, protecting Canada's economy and infrastructure from foreign interference and from the rise of despotism, end quote. Presumably, the House leader includes protecting democracy and the Canada Elections Act among these goals. Can the House leader inform this House how that top priority is coming along? Moreover, is the government now aware of any sitting MP or 2021 federal election candidate who was subjected to foreign interference or who were themselves involved in such illegal activities?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has taken the threat of foreign interference very seriously since the beginning that we took office. In fact, we heard just this week that the former ambassador to Stephen Harper was concerned about these things. But if you note, Mr. Speaker, none of the recommendations or implementation of actually protecting our democracy, protecting our institutions, actually began until we took office. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work with all parties and all parliamentarians to ensure our institutions remain strong to the ongoing threat of foreign interference.
That's all the time we have for a question period today. C'est tout le temps. I would like to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of finalists.